6 out of 7. That's how the G7 voted on Russian sanctions. 6 leaders said keep them, 1 said lift them. Guess which one got their way? Thursday morning, the United States announced a 30-day waiver on sanctions against Russia's shadow oil fleet. The same fleet that's been funding Putin's war in Ukraine for 4 years. The same fleet Canada just hit with 100 new sanctions last month. And by Friday afternoon, 3 world leaders standing together in the Norwegian Arctic delivered a response Washington didn't expect. Canada's position is to maintain sanctions on Russia, Carney said, including on the shadow fleet which is moving this oil. Germany's chancellor said he was surprised America acted alone. Norway's prime minister said there needs to be more pressure on Russia, not less. But here's what nobody's reporting: the reason Trump lifted those sanctions, and who really benefits from that decision. Subscribe and hit the bell if you want to understand the real story. Let me show you why this matters. Russia's shadow fleet is exactly what it sounds like: a network of old, unregistered tankers that move Russian oil around the world while dodging sanctions. How big is this fleet? Hundreds of vessels. How much oil do they move? About 9% of the entire global supply. And where does the money go? Straight into Moscow's war chest. Oil and gas revenues made up a quarter of Russia's government income last year, even with global sanctions in place. Even with the whole world supposedly trying to stop Putin. That's the leak. That's how Russia keeps funding the invasion of Ukraine, while Western countries send weapons the other direction. So what did Canada do? In February 2026, Carney announced 100 new sanctions on shadow fleet vessels. 100 ships, specifically identified, specifically targeted. Real action. And then Trump lifted the restrictions. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent called it a short-term measure to promote stability in global energy markets. He said it wouldn't provide significant financial benefit to Russia. But here's what's actually happening. The war in Iran has disrupted oil supplies through the Strait of Hormuz. Prices are spiking, and instead of finding alternative sources, the Trump administration decided to let Russian oil flow. Think about that for a second. America is at war with Iran, bombing Iranian infrastructure, threatening to hit them very hard, while simultaneously lifting sanctions that benefit Russia and Iran, working together. And America is helping one of them. That's what Carney meant when he said there's been very tight cooperation between Russia and Iran at great cost to the people of Ukraine. What happened at that G7 call, the one where 6 leaders said no, tells you everything. Wednesday, March 11th, G7 leaders gather on a virtual call. The topic, Russian sanctions. 6 out of 7 countries, Canada, Germany, France, Italy, Japan, and the UK, said the sanctions should stay. Only 1 disagreed. The next morning, America lifted them anyway. We were a little bit surprised. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz said that we heard this morning that the American government decided differently. Surprised. That's diplomatic language for furious. Now here's where Carney's positioning becomes critical. When that announcement dropped, he wasn't in Ottawa. He was in Bardufoss, Norway, standing next to Merz, standing next to Norwegian Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Støre at a NATO military exercise. 3 leaders, same press conference, same message. Canada's position is to maintain sanctions on Russia, maintain sanctions on the shadow fleet, Carney said. No hesitation, no diplomatic hedging, just a clear statement of where Canada stands. Merz went further. He said 6 of 7 G7 countries opposed lifting sanctions. He made sure everyone knew America acted alone. And Støre? There needs to be more pressure on Russia, not less. Rapid fire. Canada maintains sanctions. Germany maintains sanctions. Norway maintains sanctions. France, Italy, Japan, UK, all maintaining sanctions. Only America is stepping back. Now here's the connection that most coverage misses. Why did Trump lift Russian sanctions right now? The official answer is the Iran war. Oil prices are spiking because the Strait of Hormuz is disrupted. But think about who benefits from that situation. Russia's economy depends on oil exports. High prices help Putin. And the shadow fleet that moves that oil, it just got a 30-day break from American enforcement. Meanwhile, Russia and Iran have been cooperating militarily for years. Drones, missiles, intelligence sharing. The same Iran that's currently at war with America. There has been very tight cooperation between Russia and Iran, Carney said, at great cost to the people of Ukraine and a great threat to peace and security in Europe. That's the Prime Minister of Canada publicly connecting the dots, saying what other leaders are thinking, making clear that lifting Russian sanctions while fighting Iran makes no strategic sense unless helping Russia is the point. So let's look at where this leaves Canada and what it means for the world. Last month, Carney announced sanctions on 100 Russian Shadow Fleet vessels, specific ships, specific owners, real enforcement. That action stays in place regardless of what Washington does. Canada is also part of a coalition, Germany, Norway, the UK, the EU, that's maintaining pressure on Russia independently of American policy. That coalition just got stronger. Because here's what Bardufoss demonstrated. When America steps back, other countries step forward. When Washington abandons a position, Ottawa fills the gap. And when Trump sides with Moscow's interests, Canada sides with Ukraine. Now here's why this position holds. The war in Ukraine isn't ending anytime soon. Putin has shown no interest in serious negotiations, and every barrel of oil that moves through the Shadow Fleet extends his ability to keep fighting. Canada's 100 vessel sanctions aren't symbolic, they're enforcement. Ships that can't dock in Canadian ports, companies that can't access Canadian banking, insurance that gets pulled. Real consequences. And the message that sends to allies, Germany, Norway, Japan, the UK, is clear. Canada can be counted on, even when America can't. 6 out of 7 clearly were of the opinion that we should not release the sanctions against Russia, Merz said. That's the German chancellor putting it on record. America is isolated, and Canada is standing with Europe. Here's the number that matters: 30 days. That's how long Trump's waiver lasts. And in 30 days, the world will see whether this was temporary relief or the start of something permanent. Either way, Canada's position doesn't change. Sanctions stay. Shadow Fleet gets targeted. Ukraine gets supported. If you think Canada is right to stand firm while America backs down, hit that like button. Let's make sure this story doesn't disappear. Now the question is, what comes next? Will Trump extend the waiver after 30 days? Will other countries follow America's lead? And what happens to Ukraine if Russian oil money keeps flowing? My question for you: should Canada push other G7 countries to publicly condemn the American decision, or is quiet opposition enough? I'm reading every comment. Here's what I think. There's a moment in every alliance when you find out who your real partners are. This was that moment. 6 out of 7 G7 leaders said, keep the sanctions. America said no. And within 24 hours, Canada, Germany, and Norway were standing together in the Arctic, on camera, at a NATO exercise, making clear they wouldn't follow. That's not a disagreement. That's a divergence. And it tells you something important about where the Western alliance is heading. For years, Canada followed America's lead on Russia policy. When Washington imposed sanctions, Ottawa matched them. When Washington eased up, Ottawa waited to see. Not anymore. Now Canada is sanctioning 100 vessels that America won't touch, standing with Germany and Norway while America stands alone, choosing Ukraine over convenience. Canada's position is to maintain sanctions on Russia. That's the statement. Clear, final, unambiguous. They asked us to back down. We said absolutely not. And the world is watching who kept their word. The full story of Carney's NATO Arctic Summit and the $32 billion defense announcement that changes everything. That breakdown is right here. I'll see you there.